leading Jewish campus activists. Shabbos is a master's student at Harvard University, researching the evolution of Hasidic thought in light of the Holocaust and public policy. A former chapter director of NCSY, Shabbos is passionate about Ukrainian refugee relief aid and the revitalization of contemporary Jewish life in Poland. Crucially, Shabbos is actually one of 6 students who are suing Harvard University for its failure to protect Jewish students from campus anti-Semitism. So he's going to tell us more about that now, so please join me in welcoming Shabbos Kestenbaum.
Wow, thank you so much. I hope my mom heard that. So before I begin, I have to apologize, and I'm a little embarrassed. I'm not actually Canadian. I'm an American citizen, so when I wrote this speech, I have like 3 references to the United States, but just apply it to North America, okay? Thank you. So my name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I am a proud first-generation American. That's reference 1. I'm a proud Jew, and yes, as of 5 months ago, I am the proud plaintiff suing Harvard for their failure to combat anti-Semitism on their campus. Thank you. As my last name Kestenbaum suggests, my family's origins are actually traced to Germany. My great-great-grandfather of Josef Breuer was the leading German Orthodox rabbi and a respected figure within German society. Rav Breuer's youngest daughter, my great-aunt, may she be alive and well, vividly recalls praying from the book of Psalms while her father was arrested by the Gestapo and their historic Breuer synagogue was completely burnt to the ground on the night of Kristallnacht. As one of the very last Jews to flee Nazi persecution in Germany, my family found home in the United States where they were able to rebuild and sustain their Jewish identity. To this day, the historic Breuer Shul stands tall in New York City, representing not only the spirit of the Jewish people, but of what makes Western values so remarkably important. My story of anti-Semitism, therefore, is deeply painful and it is deeply personal. Kristallnacht did not begin with book burnings or broken windows. Kristallnacht did not begin with destroyed synagogues nor expulsions. Kristallnacht began with a pernicious ideology that swept across Germany. Kristallnacht began with the acceptance, the normalization, and the celebration of Jew hatred. And I am telling all of you, under no uncertain terms, with no exaggeration, that the treatment of Jewish Americans and Jewish Canadians and Jewish students across this continent, and in particular at Harvard, is nothing short of an international emergency. It is blatantly anti-Semitic, it is frighteningly discriminatory, and it is deeply illiberal. And I want to read the following quote. "I was called anti-Semitic by power and money. Why? Because they want power and money." Thus said Harvard's 2024 commencement speaker, Maria Ressa. Fittingly, her deployment of anti-Semitic tropes in front of tens of thousands of students, professors, and families at graduation literally last week encapsulated the absolute chaos that has engulfed Harvard for the last year. Even as I took my seat at commencement, I was handed a newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, a pun on the country's oldest newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, which accused Jews of racism. Why? Because we had dared argue that the calls for an intifada are a direct call for violence. Supportingly, the 10-page paper went on to defend chants of from water to water, Palestine is Arab, from the river to the sea, and globalize the intifada. This, of course, followed an almost month-long illegal encampment of students and professors in the center of Harvard Yard, demanding a complete and total divestment from the Zionist entity. Although the participants used bolt cutters in an attempt to break open Harvard's gates. Although they depicted our Jewish president as a devil replete with horns and a tail, although they violated every time, place, and manner restriction, although they called for the violent destruction of the Jewish state, although they appointed a self-appointed security system that monitored and recorded Jews like me on our way to class, they were rewarded. In exchange for packing up their foul-smelling tents and their open-air laundry, all graduates and almost all undergraduate students had their suspensions revoked. The encampment leaders will get to meet with senior university officials to discuss a Palestinian Studies department. The Harvard Management Corporation, which oversees Harvard's $50 billion endowment, will invite them for a seat at the table to discuss divestment. And President Alan Garber has personally ensured, quote, leniency in the disciplinary process. The same week, the Harvard Anti-Semitism Task Force, which is led by a professor who has repeatedly insisted that anti-Semitism at Harvard is, quote, exaggerated, quietly updated their timeline. Rather than submit recommendations to combat Jew hatred during the spring semester as promised, the task force now has a revised date of the fall. Although both the Harvard Jewish Alumni Association and the United States Congress released damning reports pertaining to the anti-Semitic silences of Jewish and Israeli voices on campus, the university has yet to announce or implement a single policy in response. In fact, the dual reports found that a Jewish student was spat on, an Israeli student was asked to leave class due to their nationality, another Israeli was assaulted at the business school, a staff member taunted me with a machete and challenged me to debate him as to whether Jews were involved in 9/11. Harvard has yet to acknowledge any of these incidents publicly. On the contrary, Harvard recently announced its policy of neutrality, refraining from issuing statements pertaining to public policy. Just the day prior, the Harvard-Palestine Solidarity Committee renounced protesting in favor of, quote, an open intifada against every settler and every soldier in every capital. Although the university has made it its business to opine on all societal issues from George Floyd to Ukraine, open threats against Jewish students have never been denounced. Paradoxically, this comes as Harvard is fighting in court to dismiss, with prejudice, our lawsuit. Their argument, quote, Harvard is committed to combating anti-Semitism and ensuring that our Jewish students are embraced in our community. But reality tells a very different story. As a Jewish student at Harvard University, I have had my learning interrupted by students calling for the globalization of the Intifada, sat directly next to classmates who praise the terrorist groups Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, listened to 34 student groups blame the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust on Jews on the night of October 7th. I've been exposed to countless death threats, and perhaps most infamously, had a university president describe calls for Jewish genocide to be, quote, context dependent. But I want to close by saying this. Idan Alexander, Itai Chen, Sagoy Chen, Ormar Nutra, Hirsch Goldberg Poland, and Keith Siegel. These are the names of the Jewish American citizens currently being held in the Hamas terror dungeons in Gaza. These are also the names that we have plastered all over the university, only to have them ripped down, thrown away, and vandalized every single time. But what Harvard doesn't realize is for every poster that they rip down, we put 5 more back up. And I want to say this. 3 months ago, I was walking through Harvard Yard to find that all of our hostage posters were vandalized with horrific anti-Semitism. Jews did 9/11. Jews are friends with Jeffrey Epstein. On Kfir Bibas, the now 1.5-year-old baby, he had written, his head is still on, where's the evidence? I contacted DEI. I contacted the president. I contacted national media. It is unthinkable that any other minority group would be treated with the contempt, the disdain, and the disregard that Jews at Harvard University have been treated. Enough is enough. And now I'll really close. I'll say this one anecdote that's gotten me through a terrible year. There was a Dutch theologian by the name of Abraham Johann Must, and he was protesting the Vietnam War shortly before the anti-war movement became a movement. And he was protesting outside of the White House, and it was early in the morning, and there was no one around him. There was no one inside the White House, there was no one outside. And a reporter came up to him and said, "Father, I don't understand. There's no one here. There's no one seeing what you're doing. You are never going to change the country." And he responds very succinctly, "I'm not here to change the country. I'm doing this so the country doesn't change me." To all of you gathered in this room, you are a testament to our values and the affirmation of our Jewish rights of self-determination. To my classmates, to my professors who support Hamas, who support the Houthis, who support Hezbollah, no keffiyeh nor mask will ever be able to cover your unvarnished hatred for Jews and your disdain for our democratic values. And I have news for those classmates and for those professors. My siblings, Lottie and Aaron, Massie and Emily, Asher and Hannah, they live between the river and the sea, and they're not going anywhere. And while you're standing, I'm gonna I'll close. While you're standing, the IDF is attacking our enemies by the air, by the sea, and land, and we gather here today have a different battle to fight. In academia, in business, on social media, and battle we will, and battle we must. We will fight them in the halls of parliament. We will fight them in our school system. We will fight them in the court of law. We will fight them in media. We will not stop. We will not be intimidated. We will not be embarrassed. We will not go quietly into the night. Why? Because we are the Jewish people. We are the greatest story ever told in human history. We have nothing to apologize for. We have no one to be intimidated by. Am Yisrael Chai.
Oh my gosh. I think we have to say Shabbos for president. Seriously. Like, that was incredible. I don't even know what to say. Shabbos, seriously, thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are so inspiring. And thank you for taking such an incredibly strong and principled stand against hate on campus. I know I speak for everybody here when I say you inspire us, so thank you. So if that doesn't give us immense hope that the next generation can rise up against hate, nothing will. It's amazing.